The webinar is being recorded. We are going to share it on our website so that others who haven't been able to join the webinar today will be able to follow the presentation. We'll also upload the presentation that I'm going to go through so that you will have something to come back to and to share with your colleagues as you're working on your applications. So even if somebody has missed this particular live webinar, I hope there will be an opportunity for them to join and to learn about the opportunities later. Okay, so I'm going to start by sharing my screen, my presentation. I hope everybody can see it now. Please confirm, anyone?
Yes, we can see it.
Thanks. So today, this is the second of a series of webinar that we are organizing as a matter of preparation and orientation towards the media resilience goal. This particular one is focused on potential improving audience engagement techniques and stuff that you can implement in your future applications. So just hold on a second. Yes. Okay. The media resilience goal, of which this webinar is a part. Let me tell you briefly what this webinar is going to include. So, who are we and what we are doing? What is this webinar all about? Why do we have a focus on audience engagement in this particular case? And what are the options that you might want to consider in your future applications? Then we'll briefly cover some different aspects of data-driven editorial decisions and data-driven content strategies for different media outlets. Then we'll talk briefly about optimizing content and distribution and monetization and sustainability. Of course, at the end of the webinar, there will be some information about the next steps, resources, and questions. By the way, as far as questions are concerned, please use the chat box, the chat here in Zoom. If you want to ask a specific question, if something that I'm talking about isn't making much sense, or you want to hear more details about it, I'll be happy to go through it again. And there will be, of course, time for everybody to ask their questions at the end of the webinar. So briefly, I've been through this, and those of you who have been on the previous webinar and have read about the proposal, probably the project, they don't need to know it. But this is a brief overview of the media resilience initiative and the call for proposals. We are active in these 5 countries: Bulgaria, Croatia, Greece, Hungary, and Slovenia. And the focus areas are financial resilience. This was basically the topic of our previous orientation webinar. Addressing technological challenges for media. That is something that we go throughout all the different topics that we are discussing. Fostering quality news journalism as a means actually to counter populism and propaganda, and enhancing outreach, especially to groups that are vulnerable to disinformation. You can take a look at the website for more information. This is basic stuff, how much money the project has to distribute, where the funding comes from. Important to underline, this is, I think, a very important thing about this project. It's funded by the European Union, and it's in support of independent media in European Union member states. Anybody, of course, would be right to ask, what do we define as independent media? I'm not going to go through this in detail, but please go to the application guidelines, and there is a clear definition what we mean when we describe support for media and support for independent media. So who is eligible to apply, what the money can be used for, and so on. This is some basic information, and I really recommend that you go to the website and check it in more detail. My name is Petko Georgiev. I'm the director of ProMedia. This is a screenshot from our website. We are a consortium partner in this project, together with the Open Society Institute, Sofia, and the European Citizen Action Service in Brussels. We are the content partner, I would say, the journalism content partner. We specialize in media management and people engagement solutions. So what we are going to be talking about today is part of our, I would say, core competence and the reason why we are in this webinar. Now, in this slide, you can also see something that I would recommend you to go through or send over to your colleagues who might be interested. There is a link to the project in more detail. And also on our website, you will find the recording of the previous webinar. And after the end, like until the end of the day, there will be a recording and the presentation from the current webinar. So you can use it as a reference when you are working on your presentation. Once again, it's very similar to what we did in the previous webinar. I'm going to repeat it because I think it's important, and apologies for those who have been at the previous webinar and know what the purpose of these webinars is. So what we are going to do is to provide a very general overview of possible methods, this time methods to increase audience engagement and why this matters. We do encourage everyone to choose their own option and to create their own tailor-made approach to audience engagement, if this is something that you decide to focus on in your application, that will reply best to your circumstances and needs. And I must underline, we just describe generally the approach instead of going into details. That's something for you to explore further. And we're just pointing to possible areas where you want to develop your proposals, but we are not providing specific guidance. And most certainly, this is not a training. I'm sure that all of you are experienced in this area. I'm just using this opportunity to guide you towards ideas, sort of offer you a menu of different choices from which you can choose and look at and consider when you are preparing your applications. But this is not a training into any of these particular methods. In our evaluation of your applications, we will not be prioritizing any of the individual types of audience engagement techniques that we are describing here. As a matter of fact, if you come up with other ones, that's perfectly okay. And of course, we cannot guarantee that your project will be selected for funding. So this is indeed an orientation webinar, more to talk about what potential areas of work you might want to develop with the help of media resilience funding, rather than to tell you what exactly would apply best for your media or what exactly type of application you would like to develop. Now, going back to audience engagement, which is the core theme of this webinar. I'm sure you know it, but I just want to underline, audience engagement is not another fancy buzzword that we have in the media world as of late. There are at least five strong reasons why audience engagement matters for independent media in our countries. First of all, engaged audiences are the ones that trust the media more. Second one, engagement pays, and when I say this, it pays literally. Like there are very slim chances that anybody would subscribe or donate money to a media organization that that person does not engage with. Third reason why it's worth developing is that engagement actually helps grow your audience. And that's partially just a matter of algorithms. Social media algorithms, Google and all the social media platforms, all of them prioritize and favor engagement. So if articles that you publish are shared, commented, and so on, there is engagement, liked, whatever. Whatever type of engagement there is with your content, that tells the platforms that this is something worth sharing, and they increase the reach. So by creating engaging content and increasing your engagement, you're actually helping grow your audience, reaching beyond the ones who have already engaged with you. Another important reason of engagement is that it helps the media stay relevant. So your engagement and analyzing who and how interacts with your content would actually help you understand how your audience is changing, what is of interest to them, and helps you adjust your content, your strategies, your production, if you want, your editorial priorities, to stay relevant to the interest of the audience. And of course, in the very general picture, all of these factors taken together are in support of stronger press freedom. The more engagement, the more support with independent media outlets, the more potential protection and support from general society media organizations would have. Let me then talk briefly about a few areas that you may want to explore with the support of the Media Resilience Project. So one of them is, I would roughly say, in the area of using data to decide about your editorial choices and about your content strategies. So these are, as I've illustrated it here, so-called deep dives into what your digital platforms are telling you about your content and about your audience. So something like who is engaging the most, what kind of people they are, what type of your content do people consume more, when and where are they most active, which are the platforms, what are the times that are best for publishing, and so on. What is your competitive advantage compared to everybody else who is on the market? I know this is stuff that US experienced journalists and media managers are aware of. I'm pointing it here again. Let me underline. The reason to point it out here is that this is something that you may want to develop further and go deeper into within the framework of a project that would be supported by Media Resilience. And as technology changes all the time, this is something that, of course, constantly needs a media manager's attention. Then using this data to shape content strategy, you can go as deep as changing or adjusting storytelling techniques based on the analysis of the behavior, which comes as a result of the analytics of your impact, of your engagement, the models of engagement with your content, content personalization, and data-driven content creation. So content personalization is a technique that is used by quite a lot of contemporary media outlets that actually direct a type of content format based on algorithms and using artificial intelligence towards a type of audience that they are targeting. This is something that could be of potentially of interest and use. Another area which I think is a potentially interesting area for developing good and strong applications in media resilience is optimizing content and distribution so that you can enlarge your audience and increase your rate of engagement. So identifying and developing content formats based on your deep dives, content formats that might work for an audience growth. For example, hyper-local storytelling. This is especially I think important for media that operate on small markets in separate cities or cover a specific community. So hyper-local storytelling that will outperform generic coverage of events and help increase your engagement. Unique angles, developing unique angles based on the audience insights that we were talking about. Developing mobile-first journalism, choosing between options about explainers and solutions journalism, creating social-friendly content. And these are things that I want to actually remind you these are all things that will be considered in much more detail in our next webinar and final of the 3 webinars for the media resilience project, which will be next week at this time. So at this time next week, we are going to be talking about innovative content creation. And these are, of course, a few examples. We'll be going into much more detail next week. Another potential area where you might want to look at developing your audience engagement is optimizing content creation and optimizing the distribution. So things like format and timing. What length should be your video? What length works best for engagement over the different platforms? Finding out the optimal posting times based on actual real life audience activity data and not assumptions. Repackaging content for the different platforms to get maximum engagement. The multi-channel reach, automated publishing of content, low budget digital promotion to actually pay to increase your reach and get paid back by that increased reach, using artificial intelligence and so on. Other areas which are, I think, of great importance in today's highly competitive and super saturated information world. So search engine optimization, algorithm adaptation, all these things that I don't really think I need to go into detail, but looking at how good are your platforms, how well they appear in searches, how well is your content adapted to the different platforms which have slightly different algorithms and sometimes completely different target audiences and so on. So this is one thing that a media organization might look into when considering how to use external support to increase its engagement. So leveraging platforms for effective distribution, using the different types of platforms. You can see them here in this slide. I don't need to go through them, but really going into detail will help a media organization that already produces quality content reach a much wider audience with technical and sometimes editorial adjustments that will maximize the impact of the content that you have produced. Another very crucial, in my view and in my experience, area is creating an integrated workflow. I'm sure you've all had the experience, especially those of you who have worked in the so-called legacy media, that switching from the classical journalism, the legacy media type of a workflow in a media organization, radio, TV, newspaper, doesn't really matter, to a more digitally oriented and digital first workflow is sometimes very, very difficult. Journalists and editors don't by default like to be engaged in things that they may consider are the work of somebody else, like of social media managers, of IT managers, and so on and so forth. But the matter of fact is that organizations that have successfully increased their digital output and their revenues coming from there are the ones that manage to integrate the different parts of their teams, journalism editors, tech team, social media managers, marketing and business, into a workflow that supports engagement. So here it's just a basic, outline, and it might be different depending on the size and on the type of your media organization. But that is something that, in my particular experience, has been crucial. To what level do you get everybody on board, everybody who works in a media organization, from the manager down to the technical staff and to the social media team, into creating together and sharing their workload into creating a more impactful and more engaging media content. So this is something that's also worth looking into. And of course, all of that has the goal of both increasing your audience and, together, hand in hand with that, increasing your sustainability and monetization chances through engagement. So techniques how to turn your audience engagement into revenue. I'm sure all of you have experience in that, and I'm sure everybody realizes there is always a lot more to be done and achieved. So all these membership and subscriptions models, how can they be improved? What can be done to make them more efficient based on the fact that you are increasing your audience? Crowdfunding, sponsorships, local business collaboration, especially for local media, for hyper-local, for regional, for small media, and of course, using engagement data to secure funding. So this is where engagement translates from increasing interaction with your audience, increasing the quality of content that you're providing to your audience, increasing the size of the audience, and it also supports your revenue model, which was the basic or the main theme of the previous webinar. Again, for those of you who have not seen it, it is published on the website of ProMedia and Open Society Institute Sofia. You can go back through it and think of some ideas about your monetization and sustainability as a part of your future proposals. So, to sum up, what areas you might want to think about when you are applying for support from the Media Resilience Project? Here they are, some ideas. Again, a combination of these or new ones are welcome. Strengthen audience engagement and community building. Implement digital innovation and optimization of your platforms, developing new platforms if that's relevant for you. Create and implement a custom audience engagement or growth plan. That is something that would actually turn into your strategy into a reality. Look into data-driven journalism and audience analytics, another area where you might use the support from Media Resilience to invest in. Create more sustainable monetization and membership growth. Look into developing audience research and feedback systems of your own. These are all, again, I'm saying possible areas for which you could consider applying to get support with the Media Resilience Project. Again, I want to underline, and I'm sorry, but I need to repeat this very clearly. Please go ahead and tailor an application which serves best your particular media's interests. We don't recommend any specific of these topics here. It's just go towards them with an open mind and see what might work best for you. Now, this is the last part of this presentation is again something that I have gone through in detail in the first webinar. So I'm going to just run very quickly through it. You can go back to the website and take a look at it. There are some recommendations here how to craft a strong funding proposals, There are some common pitfalls that I would like to recommend you to avoid, look into. I'm not going to go through them in any detail with them now, but just go through them once again before submitting your proposals. And finally, final words from me. It's very important when the evaluators read your applications to see that you have a clear plan. Since I'm talking about evaluations, you can make a reference, so you can take a look at the application documents, but let me tell you, there will be, and how it's done, there are two levels of evaluation. An independent panel of evaluators will go through your proposals and rank them based on the criteria which are listed in the application guidelines. So be very careful to read those guidelines and try to adjust your applications to those guidelines. And then once your projects are ranked in terms of relevance towards the application guidelines, there is a second tier selection committee, a grant selection committee, which will be making the final choices, which projects to support. We are looking at supporting 4 to 5 projects from each of the countries that are included in this project, but that depends entirely on the quality of the proposals that we are going to receive. So there might be a case where one country will get, or we're going to support more projects from one country than from another. That's entirely up to the quality of the proposals. And also there are some earmarked funds which are 10% for investigative projects and up to 30% for projects that are targeted at local media. Then that's basically it. But again, nothing is pre-decided until the two committees, the evaluators and the grant selection committee, go through the proposals. And I must underline, just once again, I will not be, my organization and OSI, Sophia and ICAS are not members of the evaluator committees and of the grant making committee. So this, what we're talking about right now will not going to have a direct influence on our decision who has participated in this webinar or not. So I see a couple of questions from Media Pool. If we already have a registration in the system from previous projects, do we make a new one for this call? Definitely. This is a completely separate new project. Please make a new registration and start the project from the beginning. Yes. Okay, so again, write a compelling application, join the next webinar, which is about innovative content creation, and don't leave it for the last moment. Finally, I would very much like you either to scan it now or to do it after the end of the webinar. We need to get some feedback from you and get it back to analyze and to submit it to the donor. This is a link to the evaluation form. I would very much like to ask everybody who is here to fill it in either now or at your convenience later, and to wish you good luck. Now, I'll stop sharing, and I'll be happy to reply to any additional questions that there might be. Please write in the chat or unmute yourself if you want to ask any question. Okay. Can you post the link for the poll in the comments section? Of course. Just give me a second. Let me find it. Sorry for the delay. Here it is. Okay. Anyone else? Any questions? If not, I would like to thank you again for your time and to wish you good luck with your project proposals and applications. And I hope to see you or your colleagues. Please spread the word to everybody. Next Tuesday at the same time, we have the final webinar, orientation webinar, which is about innovative content creation. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for taking the time, and I wish you good luck. Bye.